Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
From amazing results, incredible matches, record audiences at events and on TV, equal pay agreements, and new sponsorship and media deals, never before has there been so much focus on women's sport. We talk about it every week on our Anything But Footy podcast. More women represented Great Britain at the World Athletics Championships in Doha. Dina Asher-Smith and Katarina Johnson-Thompson, the latest in a long line of sporting superstars. But as we're witnessing the excitement on the field of play, what about off it? And behind the scenes, are there the opportunities for women now and down the track for our daughters to work in sport? This is Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy. I'm John.
And we're in Milton Keynes at the headquarters of Table Tennis England. I'm Michael.
And I'm Sara Sutcliffe, the Chief Executive of Table Tennis England.
So behind the scenes, Sarah, women in sport. Is there enough women in British sport?
That's a great question. I think we are seeing an increased number of women now taking the opportunity to work in sport, and I think the more visible role models that there are, the more we'll see it as a pathway. I think within the sort of staffing cohort we have here at Table Tennis England, and we're over 50% women, and within the senior leadership team, we're 4 out of 7. And we have a chairman and a deputy chairman and myself who are all women. So I think table tennis is definitely punching above its weight.
And what about generally, you work with other national governing bodies. When you look at the FTSE numbers, what is there, 7 CEOs in the FTSE 100 who are female. There's more female leaders and CEOs in NGBs, but should there be more? Yeah,
it could always be better, no doubt about it. Still, when my colleagues from a number of sports, we get together in the CEO forum, and there are a good handful of women in the room, but we are outnumbered, probably 4 to 1. So we would definitely all like to see more women reaching the top jobs in sport.
And what would you say to people who are interested in a career, and whether that's people who are growing up or maybe thinking about changing career and working in sport? Is it a welcoming place? It's not kind of locker room mentality anymore?
I don't think anymore. I think there are certain jobs where it is undoubtedly tougher. I think a lot of the sort of athlete support roles, if you are in a very male-dominated sport, I think it is tougher, and there probably is still quite a lot of locker room banter, and also, let's be honest, the working hours are not great, especially if you're part of an athlete support personnel. You are travelling the world a lot. That's not very conducive with family life. But if you really want to do it, there's nothing that can stop anyone trying to achieve what they want to achieve. And I think certainly within an office environment or a sports development role, when you're out and about, most of my female members of staff have families, and it can therefore be a very flexible working career, because if you're out supporting clubs and leagues in a development role, well, a lot of that work does actually take place in the evening. So actually there is a lot of flexibility on working hours. So, it's a great place to work, and I think sport is such a it really makes your heart sing working in sport, without a doubt. I started off life as a lawyer, and this is much more exciting. You see the benefit of what you're doing day in, day out. You see how you can inspire girls to take up physical activity, and you can see and understand how you can start to break down those barriers where you know that girls start to drop out of sport. I played a lot of sport in my life. You know what the challenges are, and you can see how you can help change those.
And you mentioned the word challenges there, and you hinted at a few. As a leading woman in sport, what have been some of the challenges you've faced? Have you found that there's been barriers put in your place at any point in your career?
I wouldn't say there's ever been a barrier that I couldn't break through, but I would definitely say throughout most of my career working in sport, I have certainly been outnumbered. Whether it's around a senior leadership team room, whether it's around a board, whether I get invited to an awards dinner and you find you're the only female and 9 men on a table. There's definitely not parity in sport, but that's never bothered me, and it doesn't bother my female counterparts in other sports. And we'd love to see parity, but like in every industry, you need people who are breaking down they're not barriers, but people who are trailblazing along, and then others will follow through. So
how important has the impact been in sport of, for example, the England netball team at the Commonwealth Games, the Lionesses reaching a semi-final of a World Cup, Dina Asher-Smith and Katarina Johnson-Thompson recently winning gold medals at the World Athletics Championships? How important are those big female role models?
I think they are hugely important for inspiring girls to take up sport, first and foremost. I think actually I look then to the sofa, I look to the commentators, and seeing parity on the commentary sofas, or in the case of actually watching the World Championships recently, often more women than men. For me, that then is actually providing greater inspiration for girls thinking about working in sport or what they might do.
Talk about you before we come on to Table Tennis England. You mentioned you started off as a lawyer and at the British Olympic Association for 12 years. How was that?
It was it was just the most fantastic place to be. When I left working in the City of London at a major international law firm, and I went in-house to the British Olympic Association in early 2001, it couldn't have been a bigger career change, and it absolutely is one I look back as a real turning point.
What made you do it?
I'd always loved sport, and I grew up in New Zealand, and sport had always been a huge part of my life. And I think I'd found myself watching the Sydney Olympics and Paralympics. And of course, this was the day before we all had smartphones and everything, and all the content was there available for you to look at any time of the day. And so I snuck my TV into my bedroom, and I found myself, of course, being Sydney, it's 12 hours away, found myself watching the TV throughout the night. And I'd always been fascinated by the Olympic Games. And it just so happened that shortly after the Sydney Olympics, I saw an advertisement for an in-house lawyer, and I thought, well, I might give that a go.
And I guess as well, arriving at the BOA in 2001, that was an organisation that was rapidly changing as well, because they just had the first Olympics and Paralympics with lottery money. Things were really about to go supersonic for that organisation, and we saw that up to Rio, and we'll see it again in Tokyo.
Yeah, on two fronts. Not only had the lottery money come into sport, and therefore we saw the step change from 36th in the medal table in Atlanta to 10th in the medal table 4 years later at Sydney, maintained 10th in the medal table in Athens, and then from there the stratospheric jump up to third in Beijing in 2008. And then, of course, the winter sports were starting to achieve better as well. But, of course, the bid for London 2012 was just kicking off. And I was one of the first 10 people really to ever work on the bid. When I first got involved, there was still an East London and a West London bid. And we were still really trying to bash down the doors of first the Mayor of London and then DCMS to even get people engaged in the bid. So it was an organisation in rapid change and hugely exciting. If ever you want to work somewhere where momentum was gathering, that was the place to be in 2001 through to the awarding of the London Games in 2005 was huge.
I didn't realise we had to thank you for it.
Not single-handedly.
Did you think?
I wouldn't possibly take all the credit, but it was fantastic. Just literally in a bunker room in Wandsworth, and there up on two different walls of a small office. We had a West London bid and an East London bid, and circles around Wembley on one side and circles around Stratford on the other side.
Did you think at that point, bearing in mind we'd had the whole Pickett's Lock debacle where we were going to build a stadium for the athletics and then we weren't, did you think at that point we could actually bid for the Olympics, be serious players with the IOC and win it?
I did, because I was young and enthusiastic, and yeah, rose-tinted glasses. I didn't see a problem at all, and I think we pretty much got derailed by the Iraq War, without a doubt. It was really hard to get across the agenda of number 10 and the Treasury, but we kept pushing through and we kept it. And I saw no reason why we couldn't. I mean, I was passionate about it. Actually, it was really interesting. I could see, the drive from Ken Livingstone, mostly because he could see that somebody else's money would help kickstart his regeneration project in the East. And the late Dame Tessa Jowell, who was just like a terrier. She was not going to let this go. She was not going to let number 10 push this under the carpet without a proper debate. And those two people really deserve a huge amount of credit, as well as those that then sort of worked on the detail of the bid. Right up until when we went to Singapore for the decision, I thought we could do it. I think I was probably in the camp that thought we might narrowly lose out to Paris, that we would maybe it would come down to Paris, London, and we would just lose out. So it was great to turn the tables, and we certainly had a huge party that night. And again, it was women in sport with Tessa Jowell, you mentioned. Obviously, before Lord Coe, there was Barbara Cassani, who was leading the bid. Again, a fantastic moment, if you like, bringing that event to London, and again, women at the heart of it. Yeah, and I think if you look throughout the last 10 years, we have had women in the top leadership positions within sport, whether it's been various sports ministers, whether it's been chief executives of UK Sport, Sport England, there's Sport Scotland, Sport Wales. All of them have had female chief executives and or chairs over the last decade. So there's certainly been the role models. I think we would all love to see, we all know that there still is a gap between boys and girls playing sport and being physically active. And then we also know that there is still a big gap between the number of men and women who do take up these leadership positions, and particularly looking at coaching. And just before we move on from London 2012, and John covered every kick, spit and press conference of it for years, more so than I did. I kind of just jumped in at the last minute and got involved. But how important was it, not just winning that bid, but delivering it, and delivering it in such a way that the world sat up and took notice, and suddenly Great Britain, suddenly London was a place where people wanted to bring major events, major sporting events? I think it was a game changer. And I think the lead in, once we were awarded the games, of course the government then started to back bringing other major events to the country in preparation. But importantly, we have seen that ongoing commitment to major events and supporting sports to bring major events to this country, which for me hits so many key areas. Not least, it does definitely help performance, but it helps with inspiration. It helps with event volunteering, which every sport needs day in, day out. And people do want to get involved in the major events, but as long as they then, and we do see a number then staying involved, helping sports on a weekly basis, which is fantastic. And it just provides a really good buzz. Let's be honest, there is so much negativity in the world at the moment. I was listening to Radio 4 Breakfast, the Today programme the other day, and I just thought, I'm not even sure I should get out of bed. Every single story was negative. If it wasn't Brexit, it was the decline of the high street, it was the economy, and then suddenly at the end there was a small little glimmer of hope because there was a positive story, and it was about sport. I think it was Dina Asher-Smith winning her gold medal. And, it is a galvanising factor, and we see it every time a major event comes around. Everybody gets a bit of a step and a spring in their step, whether they are week in, week out followers of sport or not. Major events, multi-sport events do bring a smile to people's faces, and Great Britain does a fantastic job of delivering results.
So you left the BOA eventually. and came straight here to Table Tennis England?
I took a little break. I decided I needed to leave at the end of 2012. I thought it had been a fantastic journey, but I felt if I stayed, I didn't have anything new to add to another Olympic cycle. And in the 2 years leading up to London 2012, I'd identified that, well, I could stay being a sports lawyer, as I was the legal director at the BOA, but I sort of knew everybody doing the top sports law jobs in-house in the other sports. And I didn't really feel that was going to give me enough of a step change in what I want to do. So I really identified that staying involved in sports administration was where I could see my career taking its next turn. And to do that, I really felt I needed to get under the skin of a governing body, a top-to-bottom governing body, understand the grassroots of the sport better than I did. I took about 6 months off because I had young children, and London 2012 had been pretty full on. And then I was lucky that a position came free at what was called the ETTA, the English Table Tennis Association at the time, which, to be honest, was not in a great place. And Sport England had effectively put it on special measures, along with half a dozen other sports, whereby our 4-year funding award had been limited to a 1-year award initially, with a requirement to really put in place quite a lot of governance changes. So I came on board initially on an interim basis for 6 months to see if we could kickstart those changes, and I'm still here 6 years later.
So I've got 2 questions on that. Firstly, how do you become a CEO from being a lawyer?
You take a leap of faith. I mean, I think I was lucky because at the BOA my job had become a lot broader than just being the legal director. I was also in charge of the HR function, which had seen us obviously grow the BOA hugely, and then a managed downsizing afterwards. So it teaches you a lot about people management. But I'd also I had a lot of exposure to stakeholder work. So I'd been working closely with the Mayor's Office, with DCMS, on legacy work. So my work had definitely gone a lot broader than being a lawyer. So much so that actually I thought I probably couldn't go back into being a lawyer because I'd become too far removed from the day-to-day practice.
And then you said that needed some work, Table Tennis England. I think the phrase is fit for purpose. So how did you kind of bring the team forward and bring everyone together and get it to the point where, we now have Table Tennis England, that's the brand?
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult time for, I think, everybody involved in the sport. A lot of change was needed, and change isn't easy. But really, we had to move, and we had to move quite quickly. And within the first 6 months, we had announced a wholesale restructure of the staff. We had started the job of appointing a fully competent board. So prior to that, it had been 3 sort of elected officials, and then they had chosen a management team around them. So we went through the process of advertising for independent board directors for the first time, as well as bringing on some other directors from within the sport. We had a wholesale restructure of the staff. We announced a relocation from Hastings up here to Milton Keynes, part of the aim to be close to Badminton England, who we now share an office with, because there's a lot of similarities in how the sports are structured, similar sort of size, similar structure at the grassroots, similar demographic. So we thought we could learn from being closely associated with each other. And we rebranded from the ETTA to Table Tennis England. So there was a huge amount of change management over that first 6 to 9 months. And huge credit to the sport for coming on that journey. Obviously, a number of people, when we relocated, had to leave their jobs. And a lot of those people had worked for the organisation for a long time. But change was what was needed.
And I guess you mentioned some of the similarities with badminton. Badminton and table tennis, huge participation sport. So broadly, what is your remit? What is your structure? Because we obviously see Olympic and Paralympic, and we see gold medals on the Gold Coast at the Commonwealth Games for the likes of Paul Drinkle. But what is your overall remit here at Table Tennis England?
We could split it down really into probably 4 key areas. We are first and foremost fundamentally a membership body, and we have our members are those that play the sport week in, week out. Our membership is based primarily currently on league players. So we've got about 25,000 active members at the moment. So we work on supporting the clubs and the leagues, and a lot of the work we're doing at the moment is to try and get them to provide a better experience for their participants. Our sort of league membership is static. It's not growing, it's not really dropping off, and it's been that way for 5 years. And we know that there's a lot of work that can be done to perhaps adapt some of the leagues so that it's not the traditional 3 men playing a team of 3 men and or women on a Tuesday night on one table that starts at 7:30 and finishes at 11, and therefore youngsters aren't getting involved and less women are getting involved. So we know that by adapting some of these behaviours and having more flexibility in trying to break down the barriers that are preventing people from playing, we will get more people back into the sport. So we also work generally on development. So we work in schools, and we have a number of, we've got a new women and girls action plan that we've launched to try and get more women and girls both playing, officiating and coaching. We know that more female coaches does attract more women or more girls into playing. A lot of girls, especially at school age, like to do a girls-only class with a female coach. So we know that we have insight that tells us about these things, so we're trying to roll out more. We obviously have a talent pathway. So we work with a number of clubs around the country to try and pull the most talented youngsters into a pathway. And we've now brought our first level of England squad coaching right down to the age of 7 and 8. So we know to be competitive, it's an early specialisation sport. We need to be getting hold of the talented youngsters as early as the age of 7 and 8 if we have any chance of really trying to perform on the world stage. And then alongside that, we also have a really, really active mass participation area, which I'm really proud of. It's one that we've managed to really take forward over the last 3 or 4 years with a lot of support from Sport England. But that's where we are taking table tennis into the community rather than people having to come to a club. So we have our ping project, which is getting a lot of outdoor tables out. That has now also morphed into ping pong parlours, where we are using underutilised or empty retail space in shopping centres and turning them into pop-up ping pong parlours. We also have a number of what we call ping in the community projects, where we are taking table tennis into particularly the harder to reach and deprived areas, or trying to tackle things like adult isolation, Muslim women, disability. So we've got a lot of mass participation work as well that we're doing outside of the traditional club and league structure.
Now, I notice you've got a table tennis table in your office, which is fantastic. But John has got the killer question for you here.
Is there any difference between table tennis and ping pong?
No.
Phew.
Are you offended by the word ping pong?
No, not at all. And if you go over, if you're in the Far East, and let's be honest, it's, when I'm over in China and Japan, where the sport is just has phenomenal amount of supporters, they often talk about it. It's horses for courses.
You talk obviously about prowess in China and Japan. There's never been an Olympic medal for Great Britain since '88, I think, when table tennis came into the Games. At the Paralympics, of course, though, there's been terrific success, hasn't there? Yeah,
phenomenal. And whilst we don't manage the Para programme on a day-to-day basis, it's managed by British Para Table Tennis, which is a small, tight-knit performance programme, and we work very closely with them. They have about 16 players on their British programme. Phenomenal success, and the work ethic of the team up in Sheffield is great. I think we wish we could have the same level of success in the able-bodied. I think it'll always be hard. The powerhouses in the Far East make it really, really tricky. But I think the Para programme is going to continue to go from strength to strength.
What will it take, potentially, to have a breakthrough, a British world champion or a British Olympic medalist? Is it something we will see in the next generation, potentially?
I think you could. You never say never. We have in Liam Pitchford in particular at the moment the highest ranked British player that there's been for decades. As recently as only a couple of months ago, he's ranked 12th in the world. And to be honest, anyone ranked 12th in the world can have a shot at a title. Especially when you get to the Olympics, and actually China, for example, will be limited to having 2 men in the singles, and Japan will only have 2 men in the singles. So at some point, someone's going to be going for that third medal. If we assume, which unfortunately we tend to, that China will take the gold and silver, anything's possible, and when you've got the right focus, and as long as we can give our players all the support they have to get them in the right place so that they can be the best that they can possibly be, they're all capable of beating top 10 players, and if you're capable of doing it on any day, then anything can happen.
You mentioned Liam and Paul Drinkle as well. I mean, They play in Germany, don't they? In kind of a weekly league. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, the strongest leagues are definitely, and most British players have for decades based themselves in the European leagues. Germany has a very strong league, Bundesliga. A lot of our youngsters tend to start out in the Swedish leagues. But Liam's made a breakthrough this year, and he's actually playing in the J-League, in the Japanese league. And he's taken himself over there to put himself, as he sort of says, right in the fire. You know, if he's going to beat the Asians at this game, he's got to be prepared to go and play them week in, week out. And he's having some great successes over in the Japanese league. We would love to have a stronger domestic league than we've got, but that's not something that you can just fix on a short term. We probably don't have a strong enough club structure yet to really build a very strong league. We do have the British League, and the Premier Division is good, without a doubt, and it does attract some foreign players to come and play in it. But right now, it would not be giving our top men the right level of play that they need to be able to compete at the very top.
Michael mentioned about the Paralympians. How important is it for table tennis to have Will Bayley in the Strictly Come Dancing peak
It's
time
just brilliant.
Saturday night television?
It is just brilliant. And first and foremost, it's brilliant for Will. Will he's such a nice guy, and he has worked so hard at everything he has done in his life. And we're seeing that, when his dance partner says she's never worked with anyone who works so hard. And I think what it does is it really shows that, especially if you do have a disability, whilst you can achieve at the very top, you've got to work that little bit harder than anybody else as well, just to get at the same level. And it's fantastic for the sport. We, over the years, we've had great names. We've had Des Douglas, we've had Matt Syed, who all give great exposure to the sport. But Will become the real relevant table tennis player for this current generation. And, I hats off to him. He's just such a nice guy.
You can't go through life without a hashtag. So I think yours is Back Bayley.
Hashtag Back Bayley, yeah, absolutely.
Is it the kind of thing someone should be doing 9 months out of a next Olympics and Paralympics, or is the bigger picture just more worthy here than an individual medal or success moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to tell, and it's not my call.
Seize the moment.
It's not my call. It's something that I'm sure Will and the performance director, Gora Shveko at British Para Table Tennis, reached an agreement on. I think, like anything, there are pros and cons, and I think so long as Will is able to manage the demands of both his Strictly training and making sure he's still doing the preparation he needs to do, I think, like everything, in life, a little bit of change of scenery does people a world of good, so long as he doesn't get injured.
Yeah. A few quick fire questions to finish off with. Firstly, from me, biggest achievement for you?
Me personally, I being part of the London 2012 bid-winning team, that was a moment where just shock went through my body and my knees buckled, and the hugs of the team, everybody who was out there in Singapore, and it was just fantastic to have been part of a group of people across political divides, social divides, sporting divides, who are all focused on delivering one thing, which was winning that bid, was phenomenal.
I mentioned you've got a table in your office. Do you play? Are you any good?
I'm better than I was 6 years ago. We've got some great players in the office, so I always get a little bit of coaching tips, and I just play in the sort of social environment here in the office. But I still beat my kids just about.
To finish with, go back to how we started. What's your one bit of advice for someone who wants to do what you've done, Sarah?
I think you follow whatever opportunities come your way, and my biggest bit of advice to anybody starting out in any career is don't assume where you'll be in 10 years' time. Keep your eyes open, spot opportunities when they come, be prepared to take them, be prepared to put yourself out there. Don't assume that opportunities will come your way. I think there's great opportunities for youngsters to get involved in either volunteering or administration in clubs, in their sport, become qualified as a coach or an umpire, and just get involved, and then you'll find out what you want to do and seize the opportunities.
Well, Sara Sutcliffe, Chief Executive of Table Tennis England, thank you for being prepared to speak to great British bosses.
Thank you.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.